So my name's Tim Ralph, and I've been in ministry for my wife and I actually for close to 40 years now. In fact, graduated from Calvary Bible College in Minneapolis 40 years ago this year. And when I graduated from Calvary, it was actually my first opportunity in ministry was to be involved with Minneapolis Police Department as a chaplain. So I joined. Fell in love with it because I used to be on the other side of the law, and I knew what I was doing to those men and women all the time for those years. And so life changed, and all of a sudden I had a strong burden for the men and women who actually protect and guard our streets and our communities. And came to Colorado 37 years ago to build. We ended up starting Church and Covenant Church in Larkspur, Colorado. And my wife and I have been here for 35 years in this building, or in this church. And about 10 years ago, I got back involved in law enforcement with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Became a chaplain and went to the academy and became a deputy. And I did the deputy thing for one reason, and that was that I wanted to get deeper into the Batcave to find out what men and women who learn law enforcement and the ins and outs of that learned a little quicker, to see what it was that they were going through and dealing with. And I got to say that it was probably one of the greatest educations I got going to the academy and learning that, wow, who wants to do this for a living? But it's so rewarding, because I've always told deputies and police officers, anybody in law enforcement, that as a pastor of a church, that law enforcement to me is a calling, just like being a pastor. You need to be called in, and if you are called in it, you will succeed in it, because you will be fulfilling your calling when you continue to understand what you're doing. Therefore, that means that every deputy, every police officer trains constantly. After leaving the academy and becoming a law enforcement agent who works in the streets or works in detentions or any place like that, they have to continually train, and learn their skills, and remember that everything that they do is perishable. But it's the same thing with our spiritual life. The men and women who are in law enforcement, I feel and believe that our spirituality can become perishable if we don't know that we need to hone it, constantly be learning and studying, as Paul said, to show ourselves to prove a workman, because that's what we have to do. Because a man or woman in law enforcement, I feel, can lose a lot of their love and their compassion just because of what they see every day, what they hear, what they look at, what they try to do, and what they're prevented from doing as a police officer. And our world is evil, it's dark, and a lot of people don't realize that. They see it in the papers, they hear it on the news, but men and women who drive around those cars day and night, 24/7, they see it constantly. It becomes a lifestyle. And unfortunately, they take that lifestyle home with them, and the people that they love dearly are the ones who sometimes suffer because they don't know how to process the evil that they're looking at, or the wrongs that are being committed, and the fact that what they've been called to do, to put a stop to it, to try and at least hinder it, are sometimes thwarted. Those things are laughed at, they're ridiculed, they're criticized. And so the very place where they should be able to go, their church and their homes, which should be their sanctuaries, their safe places, are no longer safe places. And find somebody. Do you remember that scene from Saving Private Ryan when everybody's walking to go, they got their mission, and a few of the guys are complaining to Captain Miller, and anyways, they're all complaining about this, that, and everything else, and one of them comes up to Captain Miller and says, "Hey, don't you have some disappointments, some complaints?" He goes, "Yeah, but I don't complain down. I don't complain to you. I complain up." I like that, because as a man of God, okay, when I have an issue or a problem, okay, and to be honest with you, my wife is that person. She's been my best friend forever. She's spiritually knowledgeable. She's not afraid to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And but you have to have somebody that you can go to that's not going to just tickle your feet. that they're going to say, hey, listen, here's what you got to do. And it's no different than going to, if you can't shoot your gun, I'm just going back to that, but if you can't shoot your gun, and if you're afraid to go to an instructor to say, hey, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? How can I make this better? Am I holding my gun wrong? Am I looking wrong? Am I breathing wrong? Am I pulling my trigger wrong? If you're afraid to go to somebody that knows and is better at it, well, then you've only robbed yourself. We have to humble ourselves. In fact, I love the fact that Paul says, humble yourself before the Lord and He'll lift you up. Well, humility is a hard thing for a cop, to be humble, all right? It's for anybody, but especially we're trained to be tough. We're trained to say, no, I know what I'm doing. I got a handle on this. I'm going to win this fight. I'm not going to let anybody get the best of me. And that's good. We got to have that. But it needs to be the same in our spiritual life. If it's not, okay, then I guarantee that those skills will be perishable also, and we'll start depending more on this and thinking, well, I'll just instead of, I'll just fire every round I have and hopefully I hit something. Well, that's not smart. That's not gonna solve the problem. We're taught to shoot with accuracy, to know and to calm down and to breathe and to do all those muscle memory things. And we should be able to do the same thing spiritually. And that we need a person. We need a person, a pastor, a wife, somebody, a grandpa, a dad, somebody in our life to say, hey, listen, hone me a little bit. Amber's started her old youth ministry, okay, when she worked for us on Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron as man sharpens man. Well, if we're not afraid to be sharpened, and every time we're sharpened, Dean, one of the things I try to tell people, that scripture means to me is every time I'm sharpened, something's coming off that knife. And God forbid you try to put that back on. Try and take those little particles back on, because you're not accomplishing it, you're wasting your time. The thing is, it hurts to be sharpened, but you become a sharper person. You become a tool that is indispensable. And that's what that scripture means to me. So the spirituality part of it, I mean, we all know that everything you learned in the academy was here. Okay, that's where all that information. Every day you go to briefing. Okay, here's what you're going to do. But this 18-inch drop, they call it, from our heart to that. If this is being affected, which it will be by the ugliness that we see in life, the disappointments, and not just on the job, but we have them at home. We were talking about it. We have them at home. I mean, we go through our own tragedies, our losses with our close family members, and financial stresses, and feeding the kids, and making sure there's gas in the tank and the cars are running. I mean, we go through all those things too. A lot of people don't realize that. Plus, we're taking on all this stuff out in the streets. So this is always going to be affected. And if this isn't talking to this, okay, which in my opinion is part of our spiritual life, is our heart talking to our mind. Paul says, my mind and my spirit are in conflict with each other continually. Well, the Apostle Paul brings that up, that there's a conflict going on there. And if this takes over 10 years into a career of any cop, if this is the only thing that they're listening to, I can guarantee that this will never be fed. And this is going to take over, and that's where we find the anger and the stresses and the way that we deal with pressure and stress, okay, can be affected. And all of a sudden, guess what? We're not hitting the target anymore. And it's no different than having something happen to our hand and trying to draw a gun. And it's like, man, I can't shoot anymore. Why is it? I remember when I first started wearing a contact, and trying to shoot and look at the sight and everything else. Those things are affected, okay, and our spiritual life is affected. So if we don't have these places and a safe place at home to grow, as Paul would say, we're to grow spiritually. We have to hone those things. We hear those things all the time, but it's another thing to put ourselves to be discipled. We're very willing to be trained in law enforcement. It's like all of a sudden they say, hey, you want to be on the SWAT team, or you want to be K-9 or something. Like, oh yeah, brand new challenge. And we go learn a brand new way of doing things, a whole new world. But then when we say, hey, you want to read the book of Genesis, or do you want to read Galatians? Let's learn and see what we can. We go, I don't have time for that. It's like we should have the same passion to learn new skills and new ways of doing things spiritually and supernaturally as we do in our careers. And if we could balance that, okay, bring those two things, because that's going to make you a better K-9 officer. It's going to make you a better SWAT officer. is when you can take that hard thing and do the same thing, the training and the disciplines that we need in our lives, because it's the discipline that you have in your spiritual life that's going to help you with your children, with your marriage, with your finances. Being a SWAT officer ain't going to help you ding dong, to help raise your kids, except to show them some cool stuff. But it's not going to help us to work their lives out so that they can learn how to work through difficulties and situations, disappointments and heartache. That only comes from knowing this in our spirituality. So it's interesting that a police officer will always tell a little kid, you can always come to the police department because that's a safe place for you to go. But where does a cop go to find that safe place? And if it's not at home, if it's not in their church, a place where they can grow and unload and dump, then they're going to boggle it up inside, and that it starts to affect you.
So what Pastor Tim was saying here is basically this idea that we've been preaching about for a while now, which is finding a balance in our overall well-being, this emotional well-being, our professional well-being, our physical well-being, and our spiritual well-being. Spiritual well-being being the most important one we have. Amber and I both truly believe that, and it burdens me deeply to see all of my brothers and sisters who struggle on a daily basis. The little things that we deal with on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, whatever it may be, those burdens, they build up, they add up, and oftentimes the littlest things in our lives will become triggers, will set us off, and that's no way to live, and we know that. We all know that. We are all burdened by it. We talk about it with one another. We talk about it with our friends, with our pastors. But the solution, a lot of us have not figured out the solution yet to solve this problem, and that is where our spiritual well-being comes into play. When we find a balance between our physical well-being, and we're eating right, we're exercising, we're taking strides to better our physical well-being, and we're working on our emotional well-being, taking strides to better our financial situation, or whatever it may be, our home life, our marriage, our relationship with our children, relationship with grandparents, whatever it may be, and we're taking strides to balance our professional well-being, where if we're not happy with our job, we're trying to find other employment, or we're trying to find a better situation or a better job within our employer, within our workplace, taking strides in that area. And most importantly, when we take strides to better our spiritual well-being, life will get better. My encouragement today is to be thinking about who is that person in your life, like Tim said, that you can go to, that you can vent your frustrations, you can vent your burdens. There's zero judgment at all. Whether this is a pastor that you could be your wife, like Tim said, a lifelong friend, someone you work with who knows all the struggles you've been dealing with and all the burdens in your life. No judgment. There's zero judgment from these people, and we have to have them in our lives. They're going to be the ones that not only can help encourage us and motivate us, but they'll also be the ones that keep us accountable, because they know what we're dealing with. Some of them have probably dealt with it before in their lives as well. And these are the people that have the experience we need to pull us through, and to help us. Like I said before, the goal with everything Amber and I are doing with our journey to Bliss, the only goal is to be more successful. We want to be more successful in our lives overall. In everything we do, more successful. And having a balanced spiritual well-being with the other three, that's the most important thing we can have. And so I encourage you, think about that. Who's that person you can talk to? If you need help figuring this out, send us a message on our journey to Bliss. If you have questions, or if you are inspired or you're encouraged by Tim's message today, and post it in the comments, like our page, post whatever it is you want to post. If you have a question for Tim, post it on there. We'll make sure he sees it. If you have a question for one of us, post it on there. We'll make sure we respond to it. And if you want it to be private, I'll be happy to answer any questions. My wife Amber would love to answer any questions. Shoot us a message, and we'll get back to you. I promise you that. But for today, let's find out who those people are in our lives that are going to help us be more successful.
In the back of the schoolyard, strings to play.